Welcome to the Chasing Genius podcast, the show for creatives in pursuit of their own creative genius, where genius is not just a buzzword, it is a lifestyle. I'm your host, Crystal Anokam, and welcome to the show. So before we dive in, get your gear ready. So grab your artist toolkit, creative toolkit, whatever toolkit you desire, and let's dive right into today's topic, which is honor the season that you are in. In the background, though, I will be kind of just showing B-roll footage of me working on a web AR project of mine, personal project of mine. I feel that, just working on a collage of the guests is one avenue, but also want to use this time to work on stuff for myself as well. So it's an even playing field between you and I as we, go through these episodes and I go through the show. So, yeah, enjoy that. Enjoy, kind of the intermingling of the footage today as we kind of have this heart-to-heart. So let's get into it. Honor the season that you are in. Today is a little bit of a different speed. There is no pre-planned script. There is no multitasking and trying to speak. I'm going to be speaking directly from the heart today. It's just going to be me, you, and my intrusive thoughts and a notebook in which I wrote everything that I'm going to say probably a few hours ago. So this is a different pace, a different speed. I'm excited for kind of, this style of speaking and this style of podcasting. So if you do see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my black and white composition book with my notes and my thoughts. So yeah, welcome to my intrusive thoughts. So last week, you gotta take it back to last week, man. You gotta take it about a week ago. Everything was all good about a week ago. But last week I had a complete rewiring of my brain. I underwent some spiritual surgery, if I do say so myself, where I sort of realized that I have to change the way in which I'm operating. It's as simple as that. I have to change the way in which I'm operating, and that's that phrase, honor the season that you're in, just kept coming up. And that's kind of how we landed here. And ironically, if you live, on the East Coast or anywhere that has multiple seasons, the weather this week just finally broke 70 degrees. Today is actually 80 degrees, probably the warmest day we've had all year. So you're used to, experiencing different seasons. We just wrapped up winter, and this winter was quite brutal. We had a couple snowstorms, a lot of icy roads. I got a couple battle scars from slipping and sliding on them icy roads this past winter. Having to shovel your car out, shovel the driveway. It's just, I'm over it. I probably got like 2 more winters in me before I kind of like clip it out of my life, because winter can be very annoying. It can be very annoying. So with the seasons changing and spring being on the way, you're kind of, spring kind of reminds you about renewal, growth, blossoming, harvest, reaping what you sow, or maybe fall's more of a harvest theme, but you're kind of like sowing seeds and the rain showers are watering those seeds. The leaves are growing back on the trees, whereas winter is quite barren and dull and dry and gray and all of the sad and dreary adjectives that I can't think of at the moment. And you notice that during winter you're kind of reclusive to yourself. There is a bit more solitude. One, because it's too cold to be doing anything outside. Like, why do you want me to go outside again? It's way too cold. I'm only going to work, the gym, and back home. That's it. So once spring comes, you're kind of like, oh man, I want to be outside more. I want to bask in that sun energy. I want to bask in the light. And then obviously we have longer days as well that kind of showcase, that spring is here. We have longer days, shorter nights. The sun is out more. It's warmer. And I just thought it was just so interesting that I had that thought of honor the season that you're in. And I kind of appreciate, that my spiritual clock is in alignment with the nature clock, and it reminds you, that everything that has a beginning has an end, and every ending reminds us that there is a new beginning on the way. So even though winter is ending, there's still a new beginning that's on the way, and even with the new beginning, you also know that one day it's going to end. And just like nature, we have diversity of seasons in our own lives. You know what I mean? Not every season is going to be the same. I think we have a bit more diversity than the seasons, in nature, because seasons in nature is winter, spring, summer, fall, right? I went through public education, y'all, please. Yeah. Winter, spring, summer, fall, 4 seasons. I think for humans, for us, we have different seasons. We have the traditional four. We have seasons of sowing, we have seasons of reaping, we have seasons of immense joy, and then we have seasons of grieving, we have seasons of immense community, and then we have seasons of solitude, we have seasons of being up, and then we have seasons of being down. And we kind of float through all these different seasons over the duration, of our lives. No 2 seasons are the same, and sometimes we experience a lot of the seasons as many times as we need to experience them. And each time, like life and nature, where we kind of operate in cycles. And sometimes people say, it's not good to be in the same cycle or in the same loop, but to be honest, that is kind of how life works. I think each time we experience a different season, we pull different lessons from it. We are not always going to be in the same loop with the same exact lessons. The lessons we learned when we were 18 are going to be different when we're 28, and then are going to be different when we're 38. You know what I mean? And so it is really about perspective and kind of how we learn to honor that in which we are going through. So yes, honor the season that you are in. And I think the fastest way, because when I heard that phrase, honor the season that you're in, I started thinking, what season am I in actually? Because it hadn't really dawned on me. I knew I was going through some ish, right? I just finished my master's program. I'm living at home with mom and dad, 30 knocking on the door, not really knowing what direction I'm going in. I'm just like, man, what kind of season is this? What lesson am I supposed to pull from this? And the first indication I had was, sometimes the fastest way to know what season you're in is to know what you're resisting, right? What are you actively trying to avoid? Because most times the things that you are avoiding is usually the thing that you have to do. It's the thing that you need to do. It's the thing that is required for you to do. So I'm like, okay, what am I resisting? And I think when I was honest with myself, I realized that I had to look a little bit more inwards. And I'm a very, disciplined person. You can ask around about me. I'm very much so pick yourself up by the bootstraps, do what you can with what you got, be relentless, push, drive. It's a very athletic mindset of even if you lose, there's no L's, take the lessons and keep going, just don't stop, just keep going. And I think I realized last week that mindset was actually not helping me, because that's not the season that I'm in. The season that I am in is actually the opposite of discipline. It's about surrender. Now, this episode isn't about me talking about the importance of surrendering and what it means to me. And, I don't want to get too much in the weeds of that, but I do want to use myself as an example in how it is important for us to honor the season that we're in. And for me, that season is surrendering. And obviously, when you look up surrendering, it's about like relinquishing control. It's about being conquered over. It's about being dominated over. Like, that's like bare bones, definition of surrender. But in actuality, what surrender means, it's not about giving up, and it's not about letting other people or other things dominate over you, but it's about letting go of control of the outcomes in my life. I think a lot of us can resonate with that. There's a lot of things that we pray for, that we ask for, that are our goals and our ambitions, and we want to will it into existence. There's a whole lot of like willing it into existence, like, make it till you break it, and pretend like, you are the person that you want to become. It's a whole lot of manifesting it and all of that. And what you quickly realize is that a lot of it is tied to an outcome. It's tied to what we want. And we can't control that. We might be able to, shoot for the stars, aim for the moon, land somewhere in the middle. But the outcome itself is never guaranteed. And quite honestly, we don't even know when that outcome or when that goal is going to be accomplished. You know what I mean? So when we are kind of in this of trying to control everything and how everything works and how everything operates, it's a disservice to us. It's a disservice to who we are and what we desire. And surrender means to release control, and in my context, it is to release control of the outcomes. Honor the season that you are in. That is an area that I have the most resistance. It isn't surrendering. I hate coming off looking like I'm quitting. I hate looking like I gave up. I hate looking like I just am not doing all that I can to change my situation. And I had to recognize that stubbornness is not going to change the season that I'm in. It doesn't take away that I'm a disciplined person. It doesn't take away that I have relentlessness. It does not take away from that. And I also had to recognize that not every season requires the same tenacity. Not every season requires the same routine. Not every season requires the same outlook or the same thing. Sometimes you realize that what worked for you before isn't working for you again. It's because every season is different. Like I said, that is the diversity of the human nature season. Every season is different. I mean, come on. Every winter doesn't snow, you know. Every summer isn't always blistering hot. Right? And fall, even though fall is like 2 seconds long, it's not every fall that's 2 seconds long. So not every season is going to require the same subset of skills. And a lot of times, every season is going to require a different version of ourselves, a more enhanced, a more grown, a more mature version of ourselves. So, yeah, honor the season that you are in. So, I guess, what does that look like for you that is listening, or what does that look like for us? I think in honoring the season that we're in, a lot of it comes with trusting the timing of your life. We have to learn to trust the timing of our life. I hate to say it, sometimes it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes you're like, I wanted this desire of mine yesterday. I wanted it last year, to be honest, and I want it today, and I want it tomorrow. So, and it's just not possible, and I think obviously it is very difficult in our today's world. We see everything. We have access to every single person that we have known our entire life, if we choose to. People, a lot of us are FBI agents just undercover. If we need to find somebody, we gonna find them on the internet. That is if they have a digital footprint, which most of us do. So it's like we really can find like Bobby from second grade on the internet. So, and then we can see like, oh dang man, Bobby just bought a house, Bobby just did this, Bobby just did that. You know what I mean? And I think that access allows us to compare a lot. And then we also, we have the society and the community around us, when you get close to 30, oh man, your life's almost over. Like, what have you done by 30, sets the pace for the rest of your life. And it's like, man, like if I'm going to live to 80, 90 years old, even 100, what is 30 measly years in comparison to 100, right? That means I would have, you know, 50, 70, 60 more years of life to live. So I think we do ourselves kind of like injustice when we compare our journeys to other people's, and we have to learn to trust our life. We have to trust the timing of our life. Everything always works out in the end. We have to trust that all the dots are going to connect, that this experience is going to lead to that experience, and this person is going to lead to that person. And ultimately, the goal is to always be connected to yourself, to be connected to your truth. There is really no other way to live. We're all here for the first time, right? It's like, dang, like we really all here for the first time, experiencing life for the first time. How in the world are we expected to follow the blueprint of somebody who was also here for the first time? What in the world? Like, what in the world is that? So we have to learn to trust the timing of our life. And look, this is a lesson I'm learning myself, man. Trust the timing of my life. I'm in a very, I want to say, not in the super low. I will always want to never get too high or get too low, and just remain even killed whole way through. But I'm definitely kind of borderline even kill and sometimes even low, because I'm thinking about my age, I'm thinking about the experiences I've had, I'm thinking about the world around me and where I want to be. And I have to recognize that all those things aren't even that important. What's important is just taking one step forward every single day. You get me? The other thing too with honoring the season that you're in is to stop trying to force things. That goes with anything, be it a job that you're looking for, be it a friendship, be it a romantic interest. All these things don't thrive when they're forced. They thrive when they feel natural, intentional, and honestly easy. They feel safe, they feel stable, they don't feel forced. Those are the best kinds of opportunities, when it feels like, oh, this just fell in my lap. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do the work. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't show up. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be consistent. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a disciplined person. Prayers don't just get answered because you prayed about them. Prayers get answered because you did the work. And God opens up the door for you, to get that thing. So stop trying to force things in all assets of your life. Be in flow. Be in flow. Honor the season that you are in. Be more present. Be more present in your life. And this one is a hard hitting lesson, because I think a lot of us confuse being around somebody as being present, being in front of a computer as being present. Whatever it is that you're doing, be present. And that's a lesson to me, because sometimes I get distracted. A lot of us get distracted. We could be hanging out with our friend and boom, we on our phone, we scrolling, we responding to messages, or we getting sidetracked, and then we come back to the conversation. We don't even know what in the world homie was talking about, right? And that's just one example. But when it comes to our work, we have to be present with our creative work, right? When it comes to even our academic work, because I don't want to only restrict it to creativity. And honestly, I don't even think this episode has anything to do with creativity. It's really just kind of like a life lesson that I'm learning, and that I'm trying to do my best to adapt to my life and treat more like a like a journal entry, if you will. But what I will say is that being present is a lot more than just being physically present. It's about being spiritually present. It's about being mentally present. It's about being where your feet are, and living in that, and embracing it for what it is, because the moment is just a moment. Like, every moment we have is just a moment in time. One day it's here and tomorrow it's gone, so it's very important for us to sort of enjoy what we have while we have it, because we don't know if we'll have it again, and we'll probably get something even better than that, you know what I mean? But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's your moment, it's your life, and if you're not an active participant in your life, who will be? If you are not actively enjoying the present moment, ain't nobody else finna do that for you. People gonna give you advice on the future life you want, but who gonna give you advice for the life that you are currently living in? You have to be present, learn to be present, and that's something that will go a very long way. Life will feel longer when you are present. At least that's what I believe. I don't know. I don't actually know, but I do think like life will feel like a long time when you are present every single day. Like, imagine you 80 years old and you lived every single 365 days present. It's going to feel like a really long lived life. Sorry, that's my timer telling me to be quiet. I've already rambled for about 20 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up by asking a couple questions that I've been asking myself, which is, what season do you think that you are in, and how are you honoring it? That being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed this format a little bit. Very much so a talk from the heart, a little heart to heart. And I do have a lot more deep introspective things that I am thinking about. And I'm just, doing the best I can with what I have, and doing the best that I can to show up, be disciplined and consistent, and honor the season that I'm in. So I hope that you are able to honor the season that you are in. Until next time, my friends, remember, the genius in me sees the genius in you, and I am always, always rooting for you. Peace.